so in love with you.
Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers, and today is going to be our third video while I'm on vacation. So hopefully we'll have some amazing scenes. I'm actually going to take you guys down the beach right there, and we're going to look at some Airbnbs or condos that are being built in this area. And just overall, man, I really am just happy to be here. I'm happy to bring you guys, to this location where it's a lot more calming, a lot more beautiful, to talk about such crazy things. And today, guys, we're really going to talk about, how much money investors are actually losing. And we're going to talk about different levels of investors, short-term investors, long-term flip investors, because depending on the type of investor you are and how good you are, that's going to depend on how much money you're actually losing. And in order to really help us kind of understand the issues here, we're actually going to review an article from Redfin titled, "Investors Lost Money on 14% of Homes They Sold in March, Nearly the Highest Share Since 2016. So the really good news here is, if investors continue to lose money, that means that investor demand will start to plummet, because no investor, y'all, absolutely no investor in this world is going to want to invest in something that they're losing money on. So now that the data is mounting and the losses are mounting, more and more investors are starting to get, they can't just invest in the housing market. And believe it or not, that's exactly what we need. Now, I know that there was many problems in predominantly the Fed, quantitative easing, low interest rates, but nevertheless, the sheer amount of investor demand, institutional and mom and pop investors, absolutely insane. And in fact, you guys, not only is it insane, right now there's over 15 million houses that are sitting vacant. So we need those people to have to force sell. And that's where I believe, and that brings me to my next thing. I believe that's where we get our forced selling. I believe forced selling is actually going to start with investors, not with residential like normal. Look at this, y'all. This is crazy. I almost walked to my doom. So there's a staircase right here. I didn't even know this. Let me show you guys. Look at this. Looks. So I won't be walking that way. Now, there's a few things that are happening with investors I want to talk about before digging a little bit into the article. Now, first of all, we already know that flip investors, or rather investors that purchase real estate to flip immediately, those people are getting killed right now and absolutely destroyed. Just look no further than Opendoor. Opendoor, look at their stock. Their stock was what, under $2? They've just been fined. Opendoor is taking an absolute beating, and they actually have several different names of companies, probably to mask their identity. But the first thing is flip investors. Flip investors are absolutely done. The reason why they're done is the equity appreciation isn't there anymore. And I understand that some areas in the nation are seeing rebounds, but I'm saying that's a type of dead cat bounce. And honestly, y'all, it's a trap. And that's why we see investor demand really plummet and first-time home buyers share increase. It's more first-time home buyers right now that are purchasing versus investors. And it's probably as a result of, unfortunately, the emotion. And I really hope to break anyone that's emotional watching me. We need to break it, and we need to start talking about real estate, grounded in fundamentals. So I'll get started on this article, but do me a favor, you guys, for the effort, for coming out here, taking a break on my vacation to talk to you guys. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and do me a favor, y'all, shoot me a comment below. Let me know if you want me to do these types of videos. I like this more than the studio videos, even though the studio videos are a lot easier. It just feels so great to be outside. But let me jump into the article right now. Let's read the first part of it. The share is more than twice that in Phoenix and Las Vegas, both pandemic boom towns. Investors are selling at a loss as elevated mortgage rates curtail home buying demand. Roughly 1 in 7, or 13.5% of U.S. homes sold by investors in March sold for less than what the investors bought it for. And think about that for a second. So it's selling for less than what they bought it for, plus they had to buy, plus they had to pay all the fees to either fix it up or resell it. So these people are losing a lot more money than what the data will show us as a result of the taxes, insurances, and fees. Let's finish out the paragraph. That's comparable with February's 14.5% rate, the highest since 2016. It's also nearly triple the share of a year earlier and compares with a record low of 2.8% in May. So, thinking about that real second and showing us how fast the housing market is unraveling. Now, we would have already had a crash if we would have inventory and if there wasn't an overwhelming amount of excess savings as a result of COVID money printing. But the good news is it did blindside investors enough to get them to stop purchasing so many homes in our housing market. And most of those homes are usually affordable housing that would normally go to first-time home buyers. So I don't have a lot of mercy and sympathy for these institutional investors. So really what's important about this, and the name of the game is we want investors to have to sell their houses, right? So we want forced selling to happen with investors. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen, and I've been telling you guys that I think that's going to happen. That is one of the ways that we're going to have our inventory. A lot of people are like, Travis, how's the housing market going to crash if there's not any sellers? Where are the sellers going to come from? Well, to me, that's easy. It's going to come predominantly, you know, as far as the distressed sales or the liquidation of sales, predominantly it's going to come from investors. And that's exactly what we want, because odds are, as long as the Federal Reserve keeps us on this path, odds are that these investors will have to liquidate their houses for under market value to have liquidity. Just as an example, you guys, just like this. So I'm actually in a community that I found. It's a little master plan community. I'm sorry, it's just a little community where they're building probably $1 million like beach condos right now. Do y'all see that? I don't know, 30 or 40 of them in here. And they're building these at one of the absolute worst times in history to build houses, right? With liquidity issues all over the place, with investors losing money. And they are throwing these houses up here. Now, I'm not gonna lie, these houses are absolutely gorgeous. And it's really crazy, y'all, because, and I'll show you here in a minute. Like, this is like 1, 2, 3, it's like 4 stories, 5 stories up, and they're like on the roof right now. Take a look at this. This is insane. Do y'all see them up there? Look at them. You can't do that if you're afraid of heights. You can't do that. But either way, you know, the trends are on our side. The investors, we're starting to see investors are starting to lose more and more money. It is skyrocketing upward, but here's the thing, we need it higher. So just to put in perspective where investor losses need to be, let me throw up a chart looking back at the last couple decades to see where we've come from. Now, as you can see right now, we're at 13.5. And notice that rapid skyrocket upward followed by kind of a plateau. Now, we want that trend to continue to go skyrocketing upward near the trajectory of our last housing market crash, as you can see, where about 60, a whopping, think about it. This is crazy. 60% of homes sold by investors were at a loss back in the last crash. Do y'all see that chart right there? So that's what we need. In essence, we need what? Triple that? If we have triple that loss, then our housing market will rebound. And you may say, well, you know, why would investors want to sell a potentially future performing asset? And the reason that is quite simple, y'all, because all of the other assets that investors have right now are absolutely melting down. Crypto, the stock market, commercial real estate, offices, everything right now is costing everyone money. No one's winning on this right now, just FYI. No one's winning, not them, not us. No one has won yet. We're still on this tug of war, and we're not gonna really know who wins exactly until it completely breaks and all of the dust settles, so that we can really kind of get to the bottom of what the reality and what the truth is of this entire situation. Do y'all see this? Let me go to the street here and I'll show you. But first, let me pull up the article and read a little bit more. While most housing investors still reaped gains, those gains have shrunk. The typical investor who sold a home in March sold it for 45.9% more. That is astronomical, huge profit. Then the price they paid down from 55.3% to 173 a year earlier, and a pandemic peak of 67% of almost 200,000 in June of 2022. It's important to note that gains don't necessarily equal profits. Just because an investor sold a home for 145,000 more than they paid for it doesn't necessarily mean that they're making money, because they also have money that they spent on renovation. And that's why I'm saying a lot of these flip investors got blindsided because they assumed that equity was going to continue to go up and that they can make insane profits. So, you know, and that's why I see a lot of houses in my market that are vacant but are really nice, because it's a flip property. Again, usually by open door. Home flippers aren't reaping the gains they used to, said Phoenix Redfin agent Van Wellborn. I recently showed one of my buyers a 3-bedroom single-family home in Glendale that was listed by an investor. My client ultimately found another house they liked better, and the investor ended up losing about $20,000. The investor bought the home for $450,000 and sold it for $480,000, but they put $50,000 into it. The house also sold below the $550,000 list price while it was sitting on the market. And these are exactly the type of opportunities I'm talking to you guys about. This is exactly why we have to stay prepared, because we never know when a great deal is going to come on the market. And right now, the way that the housing market is, great deals, y'all, are very difficult to find, which is even more of a reason why maintain purchasing power and also understanding of your local housing market, so that when you find a great deal, that you can buy it instead of an investor, right? We have so many things that are working against us, y'all. We don't want to be working against ourselves, is my point. So instead of working against ourselves, let's improve our situation, improve our purchasing power, our mindset, and let's just love some people. Let me move on to the next part of the video. So I wanted to show y'all that I actually am driving on the beach. Do you see my truck right there? Do you see the beach? This is so amazing. Obviously we want to sacrifice and save our money, and those things are important, but y'all, I've been working like a beast. And if you've been working like a beast and you're struggling like I was struggling, take a vacation, y'all, have fun, do something that you love. But look at this place. Look, you see that little fence right there, little picket fence right there? Y'all, this place, look at that, just no one on the beach. I feel like this is all ours, it's yours, it's mine. I really love it. I really love where I'm at, just absolutely. This is so good for me, y'all. This is just really lighthearted, really kind of just put things in perspective. I wish my children and my wife were here. I'd love to spend this time with them, but obviously they have school, so wasn't able to work that out. But let me jump back into the article. You might wonder why investors don't just wait to sell until the housing market bounces back. Many long-term investors who rent their properties out are doing that, but many flippers, especially those who bought recently, can't afford to. Holding on to homes that aren't producing income can be expensive because the owner is on the hook for property taxes, along with operating expenses and monthly mortgage payments. In some cases, many short-term investors are also opting to sell because they know prices may have room to fall and want to cut their losses. Roughly 1 in 5, or 20% of homes, you guys, 20% of homes sold by flippers in March sold for a loss, higher than the normal 13%. So flippers, you guys see what I mean, are taking the blunt of this issue. Now, investors who rent out their properties are also seeing their returns shrink in some areas. This is good. This is the long-term rental market. The median U.S. asking rent fell by 0.4% year over year in March, the first annual drop in 3 years, and 13 major metros saw larger declines. Owners of short-term rentals are getting hit as well. The Airbnb market is oversaturated with supply, and authorities are imposing tougher restrictions on hosts, driving some to sell, Redfin agents say. And so do y'all see what I'm saying? Investors in many categories are getting hit. It mentions short-term Airbnbs, and Airbnbs are getting hit not just because massive amounts of inventory, it's because also it's really starting to get, it's not making sense to do Airbnb. It's expensive, there's a whole bunch of rules. And not only that, governments, HOAs, cities, states are trying to ban short-term Airbnb rentals, and they should. It's like having a hotel as your neighbor. And not only that, long-term rental investors are suffering as well. Once again, primarily because massive amounts of supply coming on the market, especially commercial, residential real estate. So all investors right now are getting hit, and that's actually a good thing. We want investors to get hit before consumers. Let's jump back into the article and try to finish this whole thing out. Investors are most likely to sell at a loss in Phoenix or Las Vegas. And you guys remember, I went to both Phoenix and Las Vegas because I had to see for myself what was going on. And obviously I was taking a look at new home builders, which is also an investor, right? Those are also investors, so they're gonna get hurt as well. Jumping back in. Now, in Phoenix, a whopping 30.7 of homes sold by investors in March sold at a loss, the highest share of the 40 metro area. So Phoenix is taking the biggest hit, thank goodness, right? Number 2 is Las Vegas at 28%, and number 3, really surprised to see number 3 here, y'all, which is Jacksonville, Florida at 20.9%. followed by Sacramento at 20% and Charlotte at 17.4%. So things are changing. And that's why I went to those markets, and I knew those markets were in shambles. So overall, overall, this is a good thing, to be honest with you. Overall, this is a good thing. Now, once the boots continue to fall with investors, whether they're small investors, big investors, short-term renters, long-term renters, more and more pressure is gonna be put on these investors. And if you really think about it, y'all, an investor may buy a house at a 5% return on their money, okay? But look at all the risks associated with being a landlord potentially. So if investors, instead of risking negative equity, right, not knowing what's gonna happen, they can invest in treasuries for almost the same percentage, and it takes a couple clicks of a button. So I'm thinking as things continue to unravel, the quantitative tightening continues to work, the housing market continues to go into shambles, more investors are gonna sell to liquidate their properties, especially, y'all, especially those investors that are speculating. Essentially, they just own real estate and they're not doing anything with that real estate except paying property taxes and insurance. So speculators hold the real estate and just wait for future equity growth. So for the next 7 to 10 years, there's gonna be no equity growth, and they can sell that house, put that money in treasuries and yield 4 and 5%. They're gonna do that. Because why? They're investors. They're in the game to make money, and quite frankly, for investors in the housing market, you can't make money. Most everyone can't make money. That's why I haven't bought as well. I found houses that I love, but I cannot make it pencil out. And we see the same thing is happening to investors, and that is exactly where it's starting, and that is gonna trickle down into consumers. But again, you guys, this is absolutely wonderful news. We want investors to be crippled so that when the housing market starts to rebalance and when there's great deals like there will be, that we have the opportunity and not them. So having said that, it has never been, it has never been more important than it is right now to use the data to find the deals and to improve your purchasing power. Don't use your emotions, use your intelligence. Use what you've learned to find your house, and realize that there is pitfalls, right? But in the meantime, you guys, again, improve credit, income, assets, mindset, and go love your life. Go love some people. And other than that, you guys, I really appreciate you following along with me. Let me know that you like this video. Do me another favor, y'all, because I'm abandoning my camp. Like this video for abandoning my camp. I'm about to go down there. They're about 3 miles down that way. Hopefully I'll throw in some footage here of catching sharks and releasing them. But other than that, I really appreciate you following along with me. If you're out there investing in real estate, you know I wish you luck, and I hope you win.